You found it. Your home for the best content on your favorite team, the Fighting Tigers of LSU. Do us a favor, subscribe to the channel, leave your comments below, and be sure to smash that like button. So the LSU regular season came to an end on Saturday with a win against Oklahoma, and now that the regular season of college football is over, all the teams whose season is finished, you're going to start to see names of players entering the transfer portal or with intention of entering the portal. Today is Monday, December the 2nd. The portal opens, the first portal window opens 1 week from today, December the 9th. So guys can't officially enter the portal today. They're just declaring their intention of entering the portal, which I guess would begin somewhat of a tampering period. While it's still not allowed until a player is formally in the portal, third parties, representatives can have conversations, and you know those conversations are happening. The first LSU player to reportedly enter the transfer portal is LSU backup quarterback Rickie Collins. So we all know Rickie Collins prepped at Woodlawn in Baton Rouge. He was a consensus four-star prospect a couple of years ago and has seen the field in just limited action, 7 passing attempts, completed all 7 of his career passing attempts, 7 career rushing attempts. The only game he played in as a true freshman was Grambling a year ago. Seen action here in a few games in 2024, but wherever he goes, he'll have 4 years of eligibility remaining. I guess I should say 3 years of eligibility remaining because his redshirt year came in his freshman season of 2023, and so this would have been his first year of eligibility burn. So wherever he goes, he has 3 to play 3. First of all, this shouldn't come as a great surprise. And I want to take you back. I wrote this column over at LouisianaSports.net after Bryce Underwood flipped from LSU to Michigan. And the purpose of the column was effectively to say what LSU's path forward without Bryce Underwood should be. Of course, we all wanted Bryce Underwood to be part of the class, and he's not going to be. And so there can be wailing and gnashing of teeth and all of that sort of stuff. So, but he's not coming back into the class. So how do you move forward? And so here's what I wrote at LouisianaSports.net. You can pull this up, Paulie. The long-term prospects are cloudier for the Tigers. If Nussmeier returns in 2025, it's hard to imagine that LSU's next starter is currently on the roster. This is not meant to be a knock on Rickie Collins or Colin Hurley, but just a sensible observation of the times. When Joe Burrow transferred to LSU, Justin McMillan and Lowell Narcisse bolted. After Brian Kelly signed Jaden Daniels, Miles Brennan retired from football. When Daniels and Nussmeier returned in 2023, Walker Howard transferred to Ole Miss. If Nussmeier returns for 2025, someone will leave. And in 2026, Brian Kelly would be foolish not to add an experienced quarterback out of the portal. When he does, someone else will jump town. It's just how the game works now. So I'm not saying told you so or anything like that, and I wasn't writing that with any awareness of what Rickie Collins or Colin Hurley would do. I had no inside information that whatsoever. It's just, this is what happens in college football. And I think intuitively we all know that, but we still sometimes are surprised when a player leaves or enters the transfer portal. You have to sign a quarterback every class. And there could certainly be outliers like Garrett Nussmeier who sit for 3 years and wait their turn to play. But Nussmeier will be the first LSU quarterback who signed with the Tigers out of high school to finish their eligibility at LSU since Jordan Jefferson. Guys don't stay. So this shouldn't come as a surprise to you. Now, I've heard some people say, well, this is a product of A.J. Swan playing when Garrett Nussmeier got hurt instead of Rickie Collins. No, this is a product of A.J. Swan being a better option than Rickie Collins. That's why A.J. Swan went into the game. You went into the transfer portal and you signed A.J. Swan, who had started 12 games at an SEC school at Vanderbilt, for exactly the scenario that unfolded on Saturday night, which is your starter exits the game, You're playing an SEC opponent. You got to have someone who can go function within the offense, who's been in that situation before. You put in the guy that started 12 SEC games. That's why he played. I believe, as I think all of you do, that Rickie Collins has the higher ceiling than A.J. Swann. But on Saturday night, you're trying to go win a football game. Who can keep this thing on the rails? You play the guy that's played a bunch, not the guy that's never played. And I know what your answer is going to be, or your rebuttal will be. Well, then, how does a young guy ever gain experience? You wait your turn like Garrett Nussmeier did. That's not ideal, but a fourth-year guy playing for the first time is way better than a redshirt freshman being thrust in that situation. Now, sometimes you don't have a choice because you're left with young guys. That's what Oklahoma was faced with this year. They ran Dillon Gabriel off, and they were left with two young quarterbacks. How did that work? It went 6-6. And I got news for you, Kat. If you didn't have Garrett Nussmeier this year, you want to venture a guess what LSU's record might have been without Garrett Nussmeier? I mean, you ain't beating Ole Miss without Garrett Nussmeier. You ain't beating South Carolina without Garrett Nussmeier. At best, you're 6-6 without Garrett Nussmeier. But it's not about Nuss. So it's more about like what it looks like moving forward for LSU. Now, I think there's another real question, which is, what does A.J. Swann do? Does A.J. Swann stay at LSU for another season to back up Nussmeier, or does he leave looking for an opportunity to go be a starting quarterback somewhere? I don't know the answer to that. I don't have my finger on the pulse of that. I don't know what A.J. Swann will look to do. But no matter what happens with Garrett Nussmeier, you have got to go add a quarterback. This is not even debatable. Every year, you have to add a quarterback. Every year. The most tenuous situation LSU has gotten into in recent memory was 2018. If you remember how that went, of course, 2017, Danny Etling's out of eligibility. You're going into 2018. You have redshirt freshman Miles Brennan, or you have, I guess, sophomore Miles Brennan because he played as a freshman. So you have Miles Brennan. You have Justin McMillan, Lowell Narcisse. And if you remember, they whiffed. They didn't sign a quarterback in that year's high school class. They'd gone after a kid from Mobile, Foster, James Foster, I believe was his name, who ended up picking A&M. And so they didn't sign a quarterback. They were desperate. And so in the spring, they got a transfer from Ohio State named Joe Burrow. And that worked out pretty well. But they had to go get another quarterback. And when they got Burrow, Lowell Narcisse, the first Noel. Lowell Narcisse and Justin McMillan both left, and you were left with Burrow and Miles Brennan. And we only later learned that Brennan was injured, so really it was Burrow and a walk-on. That was tenuous. That's why you have to add a quarterback every year, regardless of what happens with Nussmeier or A.J. Swann. What kind of quarterback that you add this year very much depends on what Garrett Nussmeier's decision is. If Garrett Nussmeier returns, which we are all hoping and praying that he does, then you're going into the portal and you're trying to do effectively what Ole Miss did when they added Walker Howard. Ole Miss had Jackson Dart. They had Spencer Sanders from Oklahoma State. And then they went and added a young player in Walker Howard. I think Walker knew well and good he wasn't going to play that first year at Ole Miss. Now he's ended up sitting for 2 years. We'll see what his future is, but the point remains. Lane Kiffin went and added a young, talented guy who knew he was coming in to sit for a year with the opportunity to start the following season. If Garrett Nussmeier returns, you're going to go look in the portal for a guy who's probably been in college for a year who says, all right, I'll come to LSU and I'll sit behind Nussmeier for a year and I'll give it my go to try to be the starting quarterback at LSU in 2026. If Garrett Nussmeier declares for the draft, which he could, then you are doing what a lot of teams at the top of this year's rankings did, which is to go get an immediate impact transfer. What Brian Kelly did when he was hired here in 2022, when he went and got Jaden Daniels to be his immediate starter, plug and play, a guy who's played a ton of football. It's what Oregon did with Dillon Gabriel. They're the number one team in the country. It's what Ohio State did with Will Howard. they're going to be in the playoff. They just grabbed the throat at home against Michigan. It's what Notre Dame did with Riley Leonard when they got him from Duke. If Nuss leaves, that is your singular option. You are going into the portal to get a starter if he leaves. But either way, and even if Rickie Collins had stayed, you are adding a quarterback because you have to add a quarterback every single year. You cannot leave yourself in a situation where you're a turned ankle away from a true freshman or a dislocated shoulder away from a redshirt freshman that's never played. And it's not to say young guys can't play and improve and get better. They can. But in the portal era, there is no reason to leave vulnerabilities on your roster when you have the opportunity to fix them, to fill those holes, to plug those gaps, because the portal allows you to do it. So go do it. Rickie Collins enters the transfer portal. LSU's got to replace him. With who? Depends on what Garrett Nussmeier does. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact. And be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.